Warren Hewitt here. Hope you're doing marvellously well. I'm here, obviously, at NAMM in 2016 with Stefan from Melodyne. How are you, mate?
Very well. Still having my voice though.
Oh, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's loud in here.
This is like I don't know how many people we've been talking to. I'm sure you've been talking to.
Pretty
Probably
busy.
hundreds more than me.
Yeah.
And I've been running around talking to people that you get hit up all the time. Now, I use Melodyne every day. Those that watch will know that actually I use it 99% of the time for MIDI. I collect MIDI with it.
Okay.
Even with like the trigger systems that have come out incorporated inside of like different drum packages, I still think Melodyne is the best MIDI capturing device. It is always the most accurate for me.
Yeah.
But in 4, you've got some new features which you're going to tell us about. So what have you got going on now?
So in Melodyne 4 we have basically 3 new features. One is about the workflow when you use it as a plugin, as you can see here in whatever DAW. This is Logic, but it works the same in other DAWs too. You see, you normally have inserted it on many channels in your DAW mixer, like here, and then you would open up one window next to the other, which is fine for EQ kind of stuff. But if you want to look at the music and the notes that are on the track, you want to see them all at once. So to the left here, and that's the new thing, you have a list of all the tracks of your DAW session, and I call up, for example, this vocal, and I see them all in context. I immediately see this one needs some editing, needs to go there, and so on. I can rebuild the harmony, and I'm doing this not on a stereo file. I'm doing this on a multi-track file, still mixing it on my DAW. And this speeds up your workflow. You could, for example, in this example, I have 12 tracks of double vocal, 4 things each, and you can see there is some movement in the notes, and I select them all actually, and with a move of just one slider, I do the correction, and they go all up and down.
Oh wow!
Something I could have done before, so I could have get the results before, but I would have done it in 12 windows, one after the other. So
that's fantastic.
It's a workflow speed up. And the 2 different other main features we have there are actually pretty new in terms of what you can do to music in general.
Yeah.
One is about tempo.
Yeah.
And I'm talking not about quantization, I'm talking about actually tempo. I switched to the standalone version because when you buy Melodyne 4, you can open it up inside a DAW as a plugin or as a standalone version. And I'm loading a piece played live without a click. I don't know if you get the sound there, but it's a jazz recording. And actually, they haven't been played with a click, but I just turn on the click in Melodyne, and it fits to the music.
That's fantastic.
So we switch the process. Normally, you turn on the click to start your recording, and here you can zoom in on the thing.
I love this.
And once you see this, then you could add some more tracks. For example, now here when they are speeding up and then slowing down again, just
this is, you know what this is going to be revolutionary for? It's like
tell me.
when you're doing like live stuff, because sometimes I've got live recordings and they want to do overdubs.
Exactly.
And the problem is with bands is like, not problem, the reality with bands, they're more excited, they get to play the song, it gets faster and faster and faster, which is great in a live show. But if you're trying to overdub something on a live recording or a band playing together in a live situation,
this thing is great for 2 things. Like if you have a live recording, this works across as many tracks as you like. So if you have a 24-track live recording, just throw in the 24 tracks, and Melodyne finds the tempo of the whole band. And say they run away in the last chorus or so, what they actually normally do.
Which is fine because it's live and it's exciting.
Yeah, but maybe you just want to keep this down a little bit. Not make it flat. You can make it flat easily with the program, but that would be a shame.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we do here, our editing of tempo is based on that what the musicians really played.
Right.
And once you have this tempo curve here, which it gets right away upon opening the file, you just drop in a drum beat. This is a simple static machine drum. I don't know the tempo of it, but Melodyne knows, and it just stretches it to there. Let me turn up the volume of the drums and then listen back. Now the machine is following the human.
That's great.
Which we think is something that's...
I mean, I love this stuff. I do this manually my whole life.
Yeah.
I have to sit there and I go through and I tab to transient and I recreate the grids. And
actually, with software can help you with it.
Yeah.
by looking at the transients
Yeah.
and so on. It gives you a good starting point. But
Yeah.
as you know, no matter in which door you work, or if you use Beat Detective or whatever, you do go in there manually.
Yeah.
And the technology that we use is based on all the information we have about the nodes, not
Right.
only the transients, but also the nodes. So we have more information, so our results are much, much better.
No, it's spectacular.
And the workflow is nice, and the musical.
Well, I love this because the worst thing that could happen is that musicians now start retiming their music to a good feeling instrument. That would actually be one of the best things that could happen, because at the moment what we've been doing is we've been editing everything to a single tempo, and everybody's complaining how sterile it sounds. I did an album 2005, I think it was, with the Thrills, and it was with Dave Sardi, and the piano player's feel was incredible, and I ended up editing all the drums to the piano player.
So you should have had Melodyne at that time.
Yeah, in 2004, if we'd had this,
you would have done it in a few minutes.
I would have done it in a few minutes. And I mean, the album's fantastic. It's one of my favorite records I've ever made, because it sounds like a tape recording, even though it's done in Pro Tools, because everybody was playing with the same feel and groove. And it grew organically and sped up and slowed down. This is great.
Exactly what you're saying. That's what we
huge.
believe too. It's
the
human feeling is something that got lost.
Yeah.
In many genres at last. There are genres where you want to have this machine-like
if I'm
beat,
doing
of course, but
really progressive rock, kind of, I get it, you know. But even then, you know, even then, you know, I don't want the one to be exactly perfect. I need a little bit of, because it starts sounding small when everybody's...
Exactly. Especially when you then overdub and quantize all to the same one, and the sound gets thinner instead of thicker.
Yeah.
So, talking about sound, that would be the next feature we have.
Right.
The new Melodyne 4 is the first Melodyne dealing with the sound. So we have a new technology here we call the spectrum shaping technology, actually. So I demonstrated on a rather extreme example to start with. This is an Indian instrument, the tambura. I don't know if you know it.
I do.
It's a stringed instrument. You bow it, and then you get lots of overtones in the sound, and you can watch the overtones here. It looks like a graphic EQ. It looks like a graphic EQ, but it's actually the row of the harmonic. So this is the fundamental now, and I can raise this.
Oh, I love this.
Or go for specific overtones. Maybe grab some strange one, like, or a row of overtones. Do really new kind of soundscaping.
I love this stuff. I've done 2 albums with Trevor Hall, and we used a guy called Pankaj Mishra.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, it was an amazing, these instruments are carved out of a single piece of wood.
I know.
And they're usually made by the player.
Yes.
And so it's beautiful. I mean, this is amazing.
So this demonstrates how rich the harmonics can be, but you can of course use it on any other instrument. Just let me show you how it works on or maybe I show you a rock guitar thing, because it's meant for all kinds of things. Here I have a wah guitar, and this is the harmonic spectrum of the guitar, but the thing is the average of all notes that are on the tracks. And obviously from note to note it changes a lot due to the wah, and I can even emphasize this, like turning up the wah even more, or taking the wah out completely. Now it's gone. You couldn't do this with a normal EQ or so. And I could also go for the dynamics, like note per note. I have an individual equalizer or expander, and lots of more things. And actually I also have a normal graphic EQ, which is working with bands the semitone wide, which is really
I have a question for you. Have you had anybody mix a song only using this?
People started already, because we had a few people used it in the beta, but they were not allowed to publish anything. But it's open. It's available now since a few days. We released it.
You could
a few days
mix
ago.
just using this.
Actually,
so much controllability with the dynamic range. True. Picking up the fundamentals and the second and third.
I would think if you use it in your production, you would want to use it in nearly every track. But you're just going a little bit, tiny little here, tiny little there.
Absolutely,
Or you go into sound design, like what I did with this tambura, then you go by large amounts. I mean, the range is by 60 dB boosting frequencies or so. Then the sounds really become strange, or you turn one instrument to a completely new instrument. Interesting for experimental stuff.
Sure.
But for your daily mixing, as an alternative to traditional EQ, you will use it a lot.
I love this.
And we are looking at the standalone here now, but it works the same on your.
This just feels like Brian Eno to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like that kind of world. You know, it feels like the Berlin period.
Actually, you could do things like this too.
You know what I mean? It just feels like very, very creative. It's very impressive. Yeah.
Good to hear that.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're touching on all of those, like found music. You remember like the My Life a Bush of Ghosts kind of period where they would take things like tape recordings of sounds and then manipulate them to create new sounds.
Yeah.
It's a great, it's moving back to that. It's giving people the creativity.
Actually, we think this is kind of a synthesizer.
Yeah.
The approach is like a synthesizer. You build something unheard of. You do something new. What synthesizers were about this when they started.
Yeah.
Today's synthesizers are about retro or so. But
so have you sent this to Eno?
So the difference to a synthesizer though is that we're working on what's on the track. So you get a lot of live feeling into the track because the instrument was played with it, and the synthesizer then adds on to it.
Right.
It's the difference to a synthesizer which you play on a keyboard or so. So it's actually, it is not a synthesizer. It's not working with resynthesis. Although saying that, we have envelopes per note in a polyphonic recording, and we can resynthesize it here and then change the phases of the overtones. So things you normally only have in synthesizers, we have this all here. So it's a big playground.
It's wonderful. Very impressive.
Thank you. Nice to hear that.
I mean, I love, like I say, I use Melodyne all the time. This creates it as an instrument now. It's like taking it to a whole new level. Yeah. Very impressive.
You will still use it for the other stuff, obviously, but it's now you're going to use it.
So
more.
what's this called? It's Melodyne Studio 4.
Yeah, we have a new Melodyne 4 in different editions. This is the Studio edition, which has all the features. The smaller edition called the Melodyne Editor doesn't have the sound features. But it still has this polyphonic note editing kind of stuff. That would be Melodyne 4 Editor. And so it goes down to the smallest Melodyne Essential, which is good for just vocals on a kind of entry level, which starts with $99 and then goes up to 800 something for the large version. And all the people who already know Melodyne, they can upgrade to the different editions. So we have very attractive prices. For example, if you own the Melodyne Editor 2, which was the latest DNA product, which wasn't multi-track, you could straight upgrade to the new Melodyne Studio 4 with all the features for just $149. So that's really a nice thing, which people should hopefully do soon.
Yeah, no, it's
so
fantastic.
we're interested in having this in the hands of people to see what music they come out.
Let me make sure I get this off you because this is fantastic. Thank you ever so much, Stefan.
It was nice talking to you.
I didn't know. This is a surprise to me. So this is really quite revolutionary. This has been a good NAMM for us because we've gone around and we found these kind of products. This is great. That whole Eno thing, I mean it. This is great because this is like, synthesizers were always traditionally sterile. You know, there was a moment in the 70s and the 60s where they were still messing with them and they were wrong and things were going out of tune, and that was kind of when they were most exciting. Then the 80s hit and everything got very sterile and perfect. And now this is revolutionizing because we go back now and you can pull in so many different things. I'm really impressed. So great work. Thanks for watching. Check it out. Thank you for watching. Have a marvelous time. Hey, it's Warren Huart. Hope you're doing marvelously well. How are you, John?
I'm doing great. I'm having an amazing time. I'm running into all kinds of friends like Warren. And
this is John Krivit, El Presidente. When did you just get voted in? Like a month or two ago?
No. I got voted in a while ago. I was president-elect for a year. This year
that's how it works.
I'm the president. Next year I'll be the past president.
Oh.
And the next year I'll be wiping your windshield.
Okay, good. That would be you. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, El Presidente of AES. Now, we had a great time at AES. That was a really, really good show this year. I've been to many of them. That was kind of my favorite. I felt like, and I know you had a lot to do with this, I felt like it got a lot more youth orientated.
Yeah.
Because to me, we were just talking about this briefly off camera, this is about encouraging up and coming people. Because us older gentlemen who've been doing this for a while, we've got to get in there and get stuck in because it's a different world. It's not a studio system.
Yeah.
Yes, there's still studios, but it's not a go, be an intern, become a runner, become an assistant, go an engineer, be a producer.
Yeah.
It's now open your laptop,
Sure.
plug in your IO, and make music.
And it's about music, but it's about other things too. You know, so many of my students will graduate and they'll go off to work at companies like Isotope or Cakewalk or Motu or Avid, and they're doing, you know, some of them are building the tools that people use for making music, and they're making livings that way, and they're having very satisfactory careers. They really enjoy it. Doesn't mean that they can't make music, they still do. They're musicians. You can never get a musician to not make music.
Absolutely. I think, honestly, this is the best time to be making music because this is a great leveler. You know, we talked about it before. There was an elite of a half a dozen guys making everything. And with budgets coming down, that's crumbled.
Sure. Well, now you buy a computer or you buy a phone, and they taught you to make music. They have all kinds of apps. Everything. If you're in the car, you can be humming into an app and then downloading it to a multi-track. Anything that you want to do. I have like the iMachine and I sit on a plane or a train or in the back of the car and just go. And I guess Apple now the other day just released music memos, which sounds like a fun, exciting thing to do. Maybe it's not going to be a record, but maybe it leads to it.
Oh no, they become records. I've taken these ideas, you just transfer them into Pro Tools or whatever your DAW is, add a guitar part, a vocal, maybe some live drums, maybe keep the program drums, and you've got a song.
That's great. So, you know, one thing I've always noticed about you, you're a great connector. You reach out to lots of people, and more and more people every year are doing Produce Like a Pro, and all, you know, all the great educational content that you that you get out there. That's really something. I noticed that you're one of the regular guys at the AES conventions. And you know, for me, it's about really connecting with your group. With the people who love the same things that you do. I'm thrilled that you come back. Maybe you have some thoughts about why you come back every year to AES conventions.
Let's be blunt. I mean, we're at the AES. There's a couple of thousand people walking around, of which 1,500 of them are engineers that we know. It's crazy. You walk, you go, oh look, Andrew Ships. Oh, Al Smith. I mean, we filmed you and I talking, and Al walked behind us. And people were leaving comments like, Al Schmidt just walked by. I mean, where else are you going to be where you can mingle and talk with not the elite? These are talented people.
And you know what? They were young students once, and they are thrilled to talk to you. And they're actually pretty approachable. They're, you know, one of the things I learned growing up, you know, I always thought when I was younger that I needed something special to say and something that was going to really, you know, some piece of information that was going to be helpful to someone older. And I realized, you know, all I have to be is curious. And, you know, just ask people good questions. And, you know, it makes someone older feel good when a young person comes up to them and identifies them as an expert and someone that they could really learn from.
And I work with guys that are like 65 plus years old and made music. Ace Frehley, we just finished his record a few days ago, comes in, I don't know how old he is, maybe 65 these days. He comes in, he loads out of his Bentley, his computer, and puts it down on the table. Brings out his screen, opens up a Pro Tools sessions, and starts editing the solo that we did yesterday. Like a I mean, he's 65, and he runs Pro Tools. Not like runs Pro Tools, like runs Pro Tools. And if there's a common denominator between any successful people that I've worked with, that I've been around, is like they never, ever stop learning. And
well, that's it. Absolutely. You just, it's a moving target. Audio is not the same thing that it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or even 3 years ago or 2 years ago. It changes so dramatically. And so you've got to keep up with where it's going. You know, get yourself in a situation like a work situation where you're learning as much as you possibly can, and continuing to learn and continuing to train and to become or to be the best in your field.
Sure.
That's something that's really critical, and the AES really helps people to.
I was at Val Garage 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So Val won't mind me saying. I believe Val is 73.
Wow.
I mean, he looks ridiculously young, but I believe he's 73 years old, and he was teaching me some new software and plugins that had just come out that were changing the way he was mixing. He was doing slight movements, saying, "Hey, you hear that difference?" I'm like, "Only just." I'm like, "You're 73 years old, and I hear it just." And you got a lot. You know what I mean? So that to me that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And then having that hunger and that passion for music. That's why we're standing outside a room full of like 20,000 people walking around.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a big deal. Music will never go away.
Yeah.
We've been talking all this week, at least I have, with everybody I've been talking about, like Bowie and his influence, and just like those kind of people are the reason why I wanted to do music. Because I just looked at it and it was like, it was complete, it was art, it was everything. It was a hooky melody, a great lyric, incredible production, amazing musicianship, great fashion, an incredible video. Maybe it was acted, whatever, everything. And that was like a pinnacle for me.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, mentioning Bowie, one of my thrills at the AES convention was getting to meet Tony Visconti, his producer.
Scary Monsters is an incredible album.
Yeah, so you learn, you feel connected. It's inspiring. It makes you want to go home and make more music.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm always thrilled that I get to see you at these things.
Thank you, me too.
That's a big plus for me.
Well, good, and thanks for always involving us, and I really appreciate that.
Well, you do great stuff. You're a great educator and a great connector, and you build a great community. So I'm always thrilled that you're here. So I always look forward to it. So
well, thank you.
All right, I'll see you in Los Angeles in 2016 for our September-ish of 2016 for our 141st AES convention. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal, and Warren's going to be there, and we both look forward to meeting you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a marvelous time. Hey, it's Warren Huart here, back again, NAMM 2016. I'm with Cliff Maag. How are you?
I'm good, Warren. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Your friend here and employee and Brian, who's just off camera here.
Yeah.
I bump into him at AES, and we always go, he's got to come by and check out the stuff. So here we are, we're coming by and checking out the stuff.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. So you have a new product
Yes.
that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, you bet.
And here it is. It's EQ4M.
Yes.
What can you tell us about it?
The EQ4M is an upgrade from our EQ4 that we did in the 500 series.
Right.
First off, it has the 18-volt rails.
Yep.
So it's got a 2 dB of headroom more than the 500 series units.
Wonderful.
Then the other thing that's different is we have an attenuator on the input. So now we can come out of the DAW, and then EQ, and if we get doing a little more EQ, where we're going in the red, we can back it down without going back into the DAW and pulling tracks down.
Or the opposite, you can give it a little bit more oomph if you want. Great.
That's right. And so what's different about the EQ4 on this unit is first the attenuator, then you'll notice that there's an in and out button on the airband.
Yep.
So now I can preview the airband, as it's in. So I'll engage the EQ. Now I can hear the airband in and out, so I can see what I'm adding in the high frequencies in the airband.
That's fantastic.
Which is real help to hear what's going on there.
So you got some cool musical bands here. You got the sub.
Yep, that's at 10 cycles. Yep.
I do love that this is detented. Basically, what that means is it's clickable.
Yes.
Which means for guys like me, I can recall it.
Recallable.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a sheet for this that'll allow us to, that'll be on our website, where you'll have a sheet where you can actually mark for a particular setting you used on a mix on a session.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. I have a lot of friends who have your stuff, so it's great I'm getting to talk to you about it.
Well, thank you.
So the sub, got 40 here.
Yep.
360, very musical.
Yep, 160.
Yeah, sorry, 160.
Yep.
Very musical.
Yep.
650, I like that. A 2.5.
Yes.
And then your air
And then the
band
air
is
band.
sitting here, and you're selecting. So tell me a little bit more how this works.
Okay, so once you've got the basically the round out of your mix that you want,
Yep.
and you want to just open it up. Right now, this mix with that like that is set flat.
Yep.
So now all I'm going to do is just add some air to it.
Yep.
On this, I would probably not go at 2.5K on the mix part.
Yep.
I would probably be at 40K and to 11D.
Wow. So you're
And
basically
let me
just-
tell
you're
you
going
why.
right up the top and just gently sloping down.
Right. It probably doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter to us that there's a lot going on out at 40K.
Of course.
We could care less. We don't care that it's going out to 200K.
Yeah.
But it's important it can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we run that out,
yeah.
you're just getting because of the shelf and the rise in the shelf at 8K, it's just barely starting to bring it up.
Sure.
So you have to kick it to bring it up.
Sure.
So it's so not intuitive to run it up.
Right. I understand.
It's not intuitive. You'd think that's going to hiss, and I'm not going to do that. And that's just a tip that
Right.
that
There's a
really
beautiful
opens
gentle
it
slope.
up. And
Yeah.
it's not sibilance, it's not hiss, it just opens up the clarity in the high end. It's hard to explain. You just,
No, I understand.
It's like presence. All of a sudden it's live, now it's not.
Sure. There was, what was that? Avalon used to do a 32K up there.
Yeah.
For a similar kind of
Yep.
idea. It's great.
And then the thing that's great about it, you know how we can listen to something out there and we kind of get used to it, we kick it in and out. This way you can take it in and out and make sure you're putting the right amount of it in that you want.
Wonderful.
So that's really helped.
So you're selling a lot of these for people to use on their mix bus.
Oh yeah.
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 Great.
And some mastering engineers are horsing with them now too.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. No, let me tell you what's unique about it and why we're able to. One of the things that really helps this unit as opposed to some of the others. All these potentiometers on the band passes, we designed we had them designed and did the curve for the slopes on the gain structure.
Yep.
And it took a while to get the one that we liked. Once we got it, you order them and they come in.
Yeah.
You're going to have a variability from here to here when they're in the center position, just because they're physically, where the click in the center ends up based on with the conductive plastic. What we do is we take each one of them, we take them and take 1,000 pots, for instance, set them all in the center position, in the flat position, then we ohm them out, and we have 45 bins. It ends up 45 that it takes to, no matter how many pots we have, they end up in one of those bins.
Right.
And we write on each one of them the value that it was. Then what we do is when we build the units, we'll build 2 at a time. I'll pull out 4 out of one bin, and a certain range fits the 2.5, a certain range fits all of the other frequencies that we use. So we use all the pots correctly, and so they work better in those frequencies for what we're trying to do.
That's great.
So when I pull them out, I pull out 4, I hand my son 2, and he puts them in the 2.5. Then I pull out the next ones, and so this unit, these are matched, every one to the other, to its sister on the other side.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So when you're through, by the time you're through, and they're all set flat, they're within 1/10 of a dB on flat, on both channels. But if you took and gained all of them in full gain, both sides, they would match each other within 2 or 3/10 of a dB with full gain on them, with potentiometers. So the accuracy of it is far beyond what we could do before, just because of the technique and just because of the care to get them right.
That's great. It's showing a lot of care and attention.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you ever so much for showing that to us.
Appreciate it. I can't wait for you to hear it.
I know. But just the computer just went down, so we couldn't run some audio through
I'm
it.
sorry.
But I'm here because I've been highly recommended to check it out. So I really
you.
appreciate your time.
Thanks,
Clint.
Lauren. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's Warren Hewitt here. Hope you're doing marvelously well. I'm with Dave Malakpur.
Malakpur, yeah.
Yes, I got it right.
Awesome.
I actually know Dave quite well. I just wanted to make sure I don't ruin your name on camera.
That's good. Thanks for swinging by.
Now, the reason why I wanted to talk to you was because of our mutual friend Bob Hall.
Right.
We went and interviewed Bob a couple of weeks ago now, and went to his incredible studio, Echo Bar Studios, which, as we all know, Dave Pizzado rents a room out of. And it's been on camera a million times, courtesy of Dave. And I'd been there recently because a microphone company, Lewitt Microphones, had done a demonstration there with these incredible people. And I went off and saw Bob's room. He played me some music. I freaked out on these incredible sounding speakers. So I wanted to talk to you about these incredible sounding speakers.
Awesome. Well, Bob Horn, he bought a system from us just about 3 years ago, right after the NAMM show. It's the Solo 15-18 system. So it's a single 15 and a horn, classic Augspurger horn with the 18 sub, and it's got our 3-way DSP amplifiers. Bob heard it here, and he was like, "Wow, this is really stunning." And we were looking for someone to, we didn't want to move the speakers back from here back to the East Coast, and he was into it, and we brought him over there for a demo, really. And when we set him up in there, I tuned the room, and right away he was like, "Let me put my near fields on the ground because they were in the way." And a few weeks later, he called me and said, "Dave, I've never put my near fields back on. That tuning you did, I don't need any other speaker." And I think that whole point of this is where we've gone with Augspurger. We've been making Augspurgers for 20 years. The last few years, we came out with our own amplifier, our own drivers. And the unique thing about the amplifier is it's got advanced tuning tools that allow us, first off, in our laboratory setup at the shop, we can get a tune on it that we know is a very balanced tune. But then when we go put it in a room, now you're listening to a speaker and a room. No matter what size speaker, whether you're near field or far field, the room has an interaction with it. We've liked near fields largely because we can get closer to them and eliminate a lot of the reflections.
Sweet spot, yeah.
And one of the great things about a horn-loaded speaker is that it actually does put the direct signal closer to you, so it kind of takes some of the room out of it like we like from a near field. It also has a lot of really interesting characteristics because of where the crossover point on that system at Bob's place is just under 900 hertz. So all of the information from 900 up is coming out of the horn.
Which is incredible. I mean, if you watch the episode, everybody will know I was blown away by the mid-range detail. It wasn't offensive like an NS10, which is what we normally associate with mid-range detail. It just was detail. I could hear everything in its place. Also, I felt like, I said this to Bob at the time, I feel like they're very modern speakers because when you and I were kids and we were making rock and roll and mixing music, everything was splashy and top-endy, and it was great for those big 70s hi-fi speakers that our parents had, and we were blown away going, wow. But now everybody's listening on iPhones, which don't sound that bad, I'm sorry. They just don't, modern technology isn't that bad. The problem is with that high-end kind of mixing style for excitement, is you put on your little speakers and all you hear is pss, 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 and all the detail's gone, you don't hear the vocal cutting through. And the thing about Bob's mixes that I've always loved, and Dave's, and a lot of the great mixers, is they understand the mid-range detail. And so with small speakers, things cut. And they're all using your technology now. To me, the biggest thing is not just the speaker. We were just talking about a minute ago. It's the fact that you are bringing out this technology to understand how to tune speakers.
Well, to me, that's the key of it. I mean, while we have some really great advantages with a horn or, with incredible drivers, the amplifier that we have that's been developed for us, first off, it has extremely low distortion and very high output, and it's capable of almost twice the power from the RMS to the peak. So, that means that when a transient hits, it never runs out of power. And I also think, what you mentioned about, super low distortion, like non-existent. So that means the clarity in the mid-range is super present. And if you think of like music or really anything, everything has the mid-range in it. From 300 to 3K, there's not almost any instrument in the world that doesn't have that, or vocal. So that's, that mid-range detail, that's actually where we get our clues for placement, for balance, for where the leading tone in a vocal is. And so to be able to really carve that and make sure that it's accurate is I think, a real selling point. Most other products, most speakers, you take them out of the box, you put them up, maybe you adjust their angle, and that's what you have. In our speaker, we measure the room, so we can see what the speaker is doing in the room, and then adjust how the speaker is firing in the room so that what you're listening to is an accurate balance. So you're not imagining, well, what would it be like if the guitars were a little less bright, or the mid-range is so forward on an NS10 that you start thinking, okay, it has to bite my ear off to be right. or we look at the cone to see if the kick drum's in the right place.
Yeah.
We don't hear the kick drum.
Yeah.
You know, with our speaker, we can get all the way down to 20 hertz if you have the low frequency extension, or most of our systems go down into the low 20s, maybe 28 to 30. So when you talk about a modern system, one of the things I've noticed in music today, when you put on the best R&B record from the 70s or 80s, there's not much below 50 hertz. If you put on, whether it's Taylor Swift, a rock record, a heavy metal, everybody is recording all the way down to 20 hertz. Our DAWs and our technology allows us to capture all the way down, and most little speakers most near fields are going flat to maybe 80 or 70. Some will get to 60.
Well, plus they were mixed for vinyl, where we were worried the stylus would jump out of the groove.
That's right. But we also even had a tape machine which had a roll off. We had an analog console that has a certain roll off at the bottom. So now music has so much content in the bottom end that it's not that we want to add in the speaker and have more bass than is there. What we want is to reveal what's actually there.
Tell us a little bit about the speaker.
Okay, so this is the Duo 8. We introduced it last NAMM. The system could be either a two-way or a three-way system.
Right.
This is a three-way system that we're showing here. It's got the option of hardwood finish.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So this is actually a 1.5 inch piece of big leaf figured maple. This is the same kind of wood that you'd find on a PRS or a Gibson or a custom shop guitar.
Beautiful.
And it has a resonant quality all its own. And you can see the beautiful, master craftsman level of work that's gone into making this product. These horn lips are solid. They start as a 2.5 inch block and were carved on our CNC machine, and then we have a special shaper that puts the fine edge on that. The system uses two 8-inch drivers. Each driver is capable of 600 watts peak power, 300 RMS power.
So they're loud.
They can get loud when you want that, but it's more dynamic range that we're after than necessarily just volume.
Absolutely.
One of the things that's key about our amp technology is they're very, very fast and very, very low distortion, and the power. We have excessive power for, some people go like, why do you have all that power?
No, I understand.
But the idea is so that we're never in a range where the amplifier is going to provide distortion. So our amplifier distortion on our specs are 0.003. That's virtually non-existent distortion.
Yeah, we were talking about my friend Matt Butcher earlier, who's an amazing sound man. And he told me when I was a kid, he said to me, he goes, the way to blow up speakers is to put clipping through, distortion through it. And he told me earlier, exactly what I was about to say, you can do it at low wattage.
So we take that to an extreme, to be honest, and it partly came from, we've built a lot of systems, since the 90s that have ended up in hip hop and R&B rooms, and people knew Augspurger as loud, but
in the walls,
really
that's probably
visceral.
where, if you've heard of them, that's where you'll see it.
So, big double 15, double 18 systems. In fact, we just did Snoop's room with 4 15s, 2 18s, and 10,000 watts in his A room. His B room system's about half that size, but still, what we were able to do is in those two rooms have them have the same curve. So when you went room to room, everything sounds exactly the same, which I'm proud of that. In this speaker, what we've done, so we have the amplifiers mounted in the back. This particular amp has 3 channels, so you have 500 watts feeding the sub, 500 watts for the mid-range, and 250 for the horn. But those are RMS power. And
where does it cross over?
The crossover between the horn and the mids is 1300, and the crossover from the mids to the sub can be adjusted, but in this tuning here, it's at 100 hertz. Okay. Now, when I talk about this tuning, it's because different rooms and distances create different emphases, and so we're able to decide, based on what the room measurement is doing, where we want that to be. Inside the system, there's a DSP engine, that's proprietary DSP that we've developed, that's super fast and happens to be extremely powerful. So we're able to make very small incremental changes to change the color and the way that the speaker's loading the room. And so when you hear it, what we're after is an absolutely accurate impression of what's been recorded. While you could, let's turn the sub all the way up. Well, you could make a lot of bass with it. It wouldn't be accurate. And so when we're tuning the system, we're actually looking at the shape and comparing it to our known mix curves that I mentioned before, about how there are certain curves that if your room is performing this way and you can trust that, you'll get a mix that translates in every
Another
room.
thing I love about this is that people who buy these systems over the years, over the next 20 years, 30 years, however long you make them, are going to benefit from all of the acquired knowledge you're going to get from all these different mixers in their different rooms. This is great. This is where, again, I know I'm overemphasizing this, but this is where technology wins. Because you go into Bob's room and it sounds fantastic. You're building Dave's room, that's going to sound fantastic. And this is going to, in the next 10 years, it's going to be like 20, 30, 40, 50 amazing guys. You're going to have all this technology, it's going to be acquired, and we're going to get the benefit of it.
Well, I'm so glad to hear you say that because, you know, I've been tuning rooms since the early 90s, and one of the things I acquired in all that is what are the shapes of these, what does this room measure like? And, you know, as I was collecting all of that data, I didn't really think down the road I'm going to use this, you know, for this other purpose. But now I have all that data, and it's something that is really, it reveals so much about when you listen to a track and you realize, wow, I can hear all the parts a certain way. There's a few other key things to talk about, though. You know, horns were invented a long time ago, and people moved away from them in studios because there was a lot of different things about them that, you know, and we got into dome drivers that sound beautiful and
probably
really,
a lot of people don't know that, you know, I worked at the plant in Sausalito where they did like tons of great 70s records. Yeah, who's the Grateful Dead engineer? Tom, blanking on his name. He told me that they didn't have near fields when they were making those records. So they were working off of Augspurgers in the mid-70s, like doing Fleetwood Mac records and Sly Stone records and Rick James.
There's so many, you know, that history.
Isn't that crazy to think that?
Right. And so
with small, tight 70s records were done on huge horn-driven speakers.
It's cool though because
it's cool, man.
And you know what? When you put those up and you can hear every detail in the mix, you know, it's not a surprise to me. One of the things, an advantage in a horn is that, first off, it's super efficient. So the driver in the horn is 106 dB SPL sensitivity. The average tweeter is between 90 and maybe 95. So we have a huge amount of headroom compared to a dome driver. But what makes that really cool is that, you know, everything in this speaker from 1300 up is coming from one source. So it's very phase coherent, and, you know, it's got a 70-degree vertical dispersion, 110 horizontally. So it creates a very wide response pattern. So, you know, you have to be out of 110 degrees to get out off-axis response. That means that everybody who's pretty much in the listening environment is going to hear it very similarly. It also means that, you know, phase coherence in a speaker is all about how frequency and time arrives, right? That's really what we're talking about.
Our whole life when it comes to mixing recording is all about phase.
Right. So if you can have a linear phase curve, that's actually more important in some ways than a flat frequency response. You know, you have to make some choices to get there. In this speaker, we have an extremely linear frequency response. You know, pretty much from 100 hertz to 20K, it's phase linear. The subwoofer adds the ability to go down to 20 hertz. It also increases SPL. So, you know, if you have this speaker without the sub, which is great, it'll go down to 28. If you add the sub, it'll go down to 20. But it also increases SPL by about 10 dB. So for someone who wants a main monitor impression but has a smaller footprint, that's really where I designed the Dual 8 to do. So to have main monitor output in a smaller footprint. Here at the show, we've released the Solo 12 MF. The MF uses the midfield horn, the same smaller horn that we developed for the Dual 8. We ported it over into the same design. This uses a single 12 driver. And the differences of these systems is, you know, different people have different sort of tonal balances that they're looking for. You know, if you're doing something with a lot of low-end information and a lot of, you know, dance music, urban type stuff, you might dial yourself in a little more to this than to the Dual 8. I find the Dual 8 is so he's got single 15.
Oh, wow.
So these are the two speakers that are using the new MF horn that we've developed. You know, we've got a double 12 sub. We actually make 4 different subwoofers. We make a single 12, a double 12, a single 18, a double 18.
I think for people who sort of help follow along, you're saying 500 watts for 100 hertz and below. what Dave is saying is like, there's, to gain volume, low frequencies use a huge amount of energy. So much energy. So when he's saying you add, just for 100 watts and below, a 500 watt amp will give you a whole 10 dB lift, because it takes away a lot of the energy that these poor speakers are dealing with, and suddenly you can give so much more power to the mid-range.
If you're running this system without the low frequency extension, these drivers are doing 5 octaves. If you add the sub, they go down to 2.5 octaves, and that 2.5 octaves is shifted to the sub. One of the things about our amp ratings, those are RMS ratings. Our peak power ratings are twice that. So while it's 500 watts, it's actually a 1,000 watt peak. So when a transit comes,
when an 808 comes in,
that's right. When those 808s hit, it really comes alive, and then it goes right back. So these are extremely tight. Now, one of the things that's neat about our driver, if you feel it, it's actually got one of the stiffest suspensions I've ever felt, but it's very, very sensitive. It's got 98 dB sensitivity. So that means when you put 1 watt into it, you get 98 dB when you measure it at 1 meter, right?
Wow.
So it's super efficient.
Very efficient.
So that's
why. Not a Bose.
Yeah. So that's why with
edit that bit out if you like.
That 500 to 1,000 watt peak power, we're able to get extremely concussive low end. Yeah. That's also very, very accurate. It's not adding or it's not an effect. And it's a lot of people thought of a subwoofer as, I'm going to add some fake bass to my sound to make it hypey. But in fact, all we're doing is creating more accuracy. Right. And as I was saying about our DAWs recording down to 20 hertz, this really helps you uncover. And look, you may not need 20 hertz in your mix, but if you listen to how it affects 40 and 80 and 160, and it has an incredible effect in supporting the other things, or muddling them, or so maybe you would take out a little at 24, but because it's interfering with 48, or so this to me reveals something that we're not used to hearing right now. Everyone's used to hearing on a small, great sounding. There's so many incredible near fields.
Well, and it's like we're talking about, we don't want to be, but we're in this loudness game now with people trying to get their mixes slamming and loud, but with clarity. And sometimes, mastering engineers are given these mixes, and the artist or the producer or the mixer goes, how come you can't get my mix as loud as this guy's? And it's because of stuff like that. Maybe they want the 40 on the bottom end, which is fine, but they've also got 15 other instruments with bleed through, with a bit of 40 and 20, 30, whatever, all of these other low-end things, so they can't really get in there and sculpt it the way they want. Because there's a lot of...
And a lot of times, people are working on a speaker that doesn't actually replicate that 40 hertz.
And I'm guilty of this. I remember with the Frey record, the second Frey record, I went to Bob Ludwig's to master, and I'm sitting there, and it's amazing. It's Bob Ludwig, he's got whatever, I can't remember what speakers they were, but obviously 100 grand's worth of speakers. More. And I'm like, wow, what's all this low rumble, and what's this, and oops, so, and stuff that I didn't know was there.
Well, we're constantly, searching for the greatest playback, and I'm not going to name the artist, but I put on a track from a very famous artist, and it was mastered by someone who clearly didn't hear down below 30 probably, because there was an extra voice in the kick drum that was rumbling, and when you heard it, you go like, that should just be removed, but someone didn't hear it.
Now, what is important about what he just said, what Dave just said, is not only about because you can't get the volume out of it, because then...
Well, you're also absorbing energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's energy that might not be perceivable through your iPhone, but it's there. But it's there, and when they came to limit and compress and master that signal, they may not have quite got the volume that they wanted out of it, and then they couldn't figure it out. And it's because a good portion of that signal has got 20 hertz rumbling away down there that they don't need.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, and on the horn, we have a tremendous amount of headroom.
Right.
In reality, we don't need all that power, but it makes it so it's so clear and crystal clear. But it only takes a small amount of power to create 10K. A 10K wave is the small little thing. A 40 hertz tone takes 100 times the energy of 10K, right? So it's remarkable, and something like this where you have two 12-inch drivers. Now we have two 4-inch voice coils. That's a lot of control. So we can get a lot of bass quickly and also get back to the null point quickly. And it's just all about control, really. It's really about trying to carve out something that makes you do your job better. And if you can work more on the music or work more on the balance in your mix rather than trying to second guess, wow, how's my bass really going to perform? Or how's my mid-range really going to be? Where's the vocal really going to sit? I think that's key. And one of the key things about measuring and tuning rooms, if all we did was plug in an inversion of the bumps and wiggles in our frequency response, we'd have something that sounded terribly boring, and it wouldn't be accurate because there's no frequency response that's absolutely flat in real music or in an instrument. Everything has a curve to it. So one of the things we do is we measure, we get in the ballpark, and then we start listening. And that's where it's exciting when I work with someone like yourself tuning a room, because we start making like 1/10 of a dB incremental changes at these little things, and you'd be shocked. Oh no, I believe 20K, I can move that 1/10 of a dB, and you're gonna go, oh no, that's too much, or that's not enough.
So much energy, yeah.
So
we should wrap it up. I'm gonna have a look. I could geek out about this stuff all day. I love it.
I could clearly go on forever about it, but I so much appreciate you stopping by and checking it out, and for having us on your YouTube channel. It's incredible
it's great.
stuff.
And honestly, the technology part of it is, for me, very exciting. And we try to go out of our way to find stuff, showcase it, because like, without name dropping Stephen again, but his microphone is revolutionary, and there's going to be 100 people doing what he does. But the point is,
he's
I'm
definitely been on
glad
the
this
cutting
guy.
edge, so.
Yeah, I'm glad there's guys like you and him and other people. I don't want to ignore other people, but people that are doing stuff that really is the future, because it is about the technology and understanding this. Because the film business is 10 years ahead of us. Well, we need to do a bit of catch up here.
I think if for me, I got into this because I love music. I'm a musician first, really, and engineering, and to be able to create a product that helps make music better, uncover what's the process for the engineer, for the producer, and for the artist. Like, there's another component we didn't really talk about, but the client experience, the artist that comes in, and if they're doing an overdub and they can do it in front of a speaker that gives them a visceral response, right? Or they hear their voice for the first time. That was Chris Martin from Coldplay, from what I hear, when he heard himself coming through the Duo 8s, he's like, that's me, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's also, to make your point, when you go into a recording studio for the first time as a kid, like a real studio, especially our age group, when we were kids, recording studios were hallowed ground, and you hear yourself coming back through something that isn't your own crappy hi-fi speakers. It's a pretty amazing experience. So a guy that's already sold a few million records, to have that experience again is so much fun.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's great on this end of it to make tools that help people at the top of their game do their job better. And that's what we're after. So,
all right.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the show.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for coming by.